that there are two themes or two sets of themes which this curriculum talks about. First is the core theme. The second are the optional themes. There are 5 of them, out of which you choose 2. And from those 2, along with the core theme, and along with 38 prompts, and along with 3 objects, you have the exhibition. Now, how all that will happen is something that I will tell you in future webinars. I will walk you through, I will explain to you how it is going to happen, I will show you, I will give you examples. Right now, in this first webinar, I'm not doing any of that. I am going to come to this. The core theme, the optional themes. And when you look at the core theme, what you see is, it's one thing, knowledge and the knower. And this is where you start thinking. Out there is knowledge. Over here, there's the knower. It is simple enough. Knowledge exists in the many areas of knowledge, and knowledge will reach the knower through the various ways of knowing. Simple enough. But the trouble is that knowledge is not so simple, and the knower is even more difficult. Is there one knower? Is there what you might call a prototype of a knower? No. So if there is no prototype of a knower, and IBO says that the knower, in this case the student, must have this knowledge in order to use it in life, then the difference in the knower will change the way he relates to knowledge and how he uses it. Today's webinar is dedicated to the knower. I will try to deconstruct for you the knower so that you understand what are the various elements that go into the making of the knower. The first of this, who is the knower? And let me start with gender. The whole concept of gender has its own problems. Somebody once said that in normal society, use the word normal, a housewife is a mixture of a maid servant and a bed partner. Now today there will be hundreds of people, feminists or otherwise, contesting this. Whereas none of us would subscribe to this view totally. I think all of us would accept the fact that in some societies this is true. That there are societies in which a woman cannot deny her husband sex if demanded. So ladies and gentlemen, it is not just about the woman. The nature of the gender determines the nature of the other gender as well, because the dynamics change. In a society which is totally patriarchal and male-dominated, it is not just what the woman's position is, it is also what the man's position is. So the man as the knower and the woman as the knower is determined by that society. But if we believe that one of the greatest changes in the world was brought about but by a tiny little thing called the birth control pill, the female birth control pill. And that it made the woman, especially in the Western world, more equal than anywhere. Then again, the nature of the knower, whether it's a man or a woman or their children or anybody, will change because of this. The second part of gender is that in today's world, we talk of things like gay rights, LGBTQ rights. There are many parts of the world where same-sex marriages are allowed. Now, my point to you is that do the heterosexual people you see around you maybe, do they even understand what goes on in the minds of the other people, the differently oriented people? Now, gender, therefore, today has a dynamics which goes beyond the individual. It goes into the community. It shapes people. So when we talk of who the knower is, both these aspects of gender, are you differently oriented? Are you male-dominated, female-dominated, equal, complementary? All of that will change the way in which you look at the world, the way you look at knowledge, the way you apply knowledge. The next one that we look at is religion. Very, very strong herd force. Not just today, but from way back in history. When the Crusades were fought, wanting to drive the kafir out of the Holy Land, the point is, it was a very strong, some may even say stupid, force which led to this. And that exists today. Today we talk about so many differences that we have because of religion. Now, I am not talking about the communal things. I am talking about the fact that people have beliefs, faiths, but these are different from each other. There is one which I believe, there is one which is a collective belief because of religion. And both of them makes me who I am. I am the knower. The third one is education. If you look at the world today, and you are all, IBDP teachers, we talk of our students going to the world's best universities. Why? Why can't they go to a university in India? Why do they need to go to a good Western university? Well, I'll be the first person to say that many of these Western universities are much, much better than the universities we have here. But is this available to everybody? Across the spectrum, there are many, many different kinds of education and many, many different requirements for education. I had a young man, his father owned a tailoring shop near my house. The young man, the father wanted me to teach the young man. So my wife and I used to teach the fellow. He could read, write, he could, well, speak a little bit in English as well. All that happened. Then one day I got this bright idea. I thought I'd put him into my old school. Mine is a 135-year-old Jesuit school. So I thought I'd put him in there with the hope that it will change his life. I went to the principal, I had a chat with him. The principal was very helpful. And he said something very interesting. He said, why are you so intent on creating a Pygmalion? Why do you want this fellow to come to this school? First of all, when he will come here and study, there will be no one in his house who can support him with homework. Assuming that he gets by and all the rest of it, he will neither be fit for his own society, nor will he be fit for anywhere else. Much as it looks presumptuous, condescending, and all the rest of it, the end of the story is that 15 years down the line, he didn't go to the school. But 15 years down the line, he has one of the poshest tailoring establishments in my town. And the question is, what is the kind of education he actually needed? But the education will be different. The guy who goes to the IIT will become Sundar Pichai. This guy will have a posh tailoring place. My question to you is that this education background will change the way the knower will look and deal with knowledge. The third is economics. I sometimes say that economics is the past, present, and future, not only of the knower, but of the evolutionary knower. Now first, let me explain what is an evolutionary knower. A knower who has changed during his lifetime. From not being very well off to being better off. Now let me give you an example. During this COVID lockdown, Reliance Industries entered into many business deals which improved their lot. It has been there in the newspapers. There were other companies which have been filing for bankruptcy. And there are still others who are struggling to find food. Does the economic outlook of people, or the economic lot of the knower, does it change the way he looks at the world, or deals with the world, or deals with knowledge? All of this leads us to what we call the knower's conviction. When you live in a world which has boundaries, which is boxed in, you begin to think that, okay, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, this is what I can get, this is what I can't get. And these become your convictions. I have a friend who was with me through school, through university. We both joined the same university as professors. We worked there for 25 years, and after which I left, but he has continued to be in the university, just about to retire. The worldview in my hometown for educated people was civil services. His son has spent the last 10 years trying to get into the civil services. After which he decided enough is enough and he became a lawyer. The question is, why did he think civil services? Because of the box, the knower's box, the conviction, the one that said, this is what is good. The one which is born out of all the other things that I have talked about. The next one is where. Where is the knower? The first is geographical region, and the second is community. In the 1990s, I was in Canada, where the people, and especially the medical fraternity, were not very aware of what happened anywhere outside Canada. As a result of which, the tropics were thought to be the cesspool of infections, fungus, virus, this, that, and the other. Now, we had lived in the tropics all our lives, and we had never felt or thought of the tropics like that. Now, it was not racial or anything. It was just, again, I have lived in this geographical region, I understand this, I don't understand that. This happens also because of the weather in which you live. It will make changes in your physiology, as a result of which your outlook to life, the way you behave, the strength that you have, everything changes. More prominent is the where of the community. When I was in Dubai, one of the most important things was that I knew I should not even mistakenly brush against anybody, even in crowded places like malls. So I took great care. If I saw people coming, I would go to a side, let them pass. Others would do the same as well, but it was a custom. You greeted, you didn't brush. In India, there is no such problem. If accidentally you do bump into someone, you just apologize. And in most cases, this is accepted. Now, the point is that based upon the community in which you live, you will become a kind of person you are. So link community with geographical region, that is the where, and the knower becomes different. I have friends across the world because I have fortunately worked and lived in many parts of the world. They are all wonderful people, but they are all very different people. And it is this difference which is so startlingly clear when we look at where the knower is. The next element is when, which is time. And this is really one of my favorites. In simple terms, you are talking about the link of the knower with knowledge. When does the knower exist? That makes a difference. About 100 years ago, Albert Einstein and Satyen Bose came up with the theory of the fifth state of matter. At that time,
if you want to be successful at it, need as a teacher to
at that time, this was what was called a quantum theory. Very recently, you have got NASA finding physical proof of the existence of the fifth state of matter. Had you lived more than 100 years ago and walked into the time when this quantum theory was enunciated, would you have found it easy to believe? Or do people who live today, who have heard of the theory and have seen the proof, find it more easy to believe? In 1918, Rutherford split the atom. Before that, the atom was the smallest particle of matter known to man. Today we talk in terms of quarks. My first question is all of science before Rutherford rubbish? You can argue that they didn't know what matter constituted of. It brings us to another larger question. That is knowledge all, not with a price tag, but a time tag? That this knowledge is there, but only at this time. And tomorrow, if that knowledge is completely changed, then is the old knowledge worth anything? I'm never forgetful of the writer Alvin Toffler and Future Shock. He had predicted that the world was changing at such a rapid pace that man would find it very difficult to keep pace with it. 2 days ago, one of my friends, a little older than me, came up with a quiz kind of thing where he said, how many of you recognize an aerogram? Now the aerogram was a sheet of paper on which you could write a letter, fold it up, mail it in the normal post. In the 1970s, 80s, it took about 15 days for the mail to reach from India to North America, and another 15 days for the reply to come back. Today, we are sitting here and in real time talking about things across the globe. Now the world has changed. And with the change of the world, it has created psychological problems with the knower. When we were young, from North America, you wrote a letter to your mom, not mentioning any of the ugly things that might have happened. You just talked of the nice things. Mom would never know. Today, mom can see. And therefore, individuals have become more lonely, and social media is fast becoming their last refuge. The only place where they don't have to be real. So you see, ultimately, when the knower exists and when he starts knowing. In one of my earlier seminars, somebody asked me that, does this time also refer to the age of the knower? Yes. It is when he starts knowing something. And that will determine not only the kind of knowledge he will seek, but how he will use knowledge. The next thing is what? What the knower wants to know. And what is its relevance to life? In IBO terms, the second part is extremely important. In fact, one of the purposes of TOK is for students not only to be good critical thinkers, but also to be able to say that if I have this knowledge, how is that relevant to my life or to the life around me? Now, what one wants to know. How does that change with the knower? Let me give you an example. There's a professor who is heating oil in a laboratory. This is edible oil. And he's heating oil to deconstruct the oil to see what happens when it is heated. It's a research. Miles away, in a remote village in Rajasthan, an old woman sits at a stove heating edible oil. She has no instruments that the scientist has. But instinctively she knows when she should put in condiments into that oil so that she can get the most perfect dal. Now, the whole thing is the relevance to life. Both want to know about heat on oil, but the relevance to life is completely different. And therefore, what they want to know is also different. It's not the same thing. They both want to know similar things, but because the relevance to life changes, therefore it is different. It is not right, perhaps, for an ordinary person to hack into the internet account of another person. But it is all right for people with government agencies to hack into internet accounts of terrorists. So again, why you want that knowledge? What is its relevance to your life? The why. I will start with the needs. Why do you need knowledge? And it is here that you will find that with this complex deconstruction of the knower, you will realize that each knower wants knowledge for a completely different reason. His needs are different. So finding out the need brings you to the larger picture of why this person wants knowledge. Now, let me give you an example. Joseph Heller wrote a book called Catch 22, which is related to the life of bomber pilots during the Korean War. He created a conundrum, which is Catch 22, about how or why the pilot could not escape his duties even though he knew that if he continued with it, he would die. Now, apart from exciting reading for someone who likes literature, in terms of knowledge, it will have limited interest for the general knower. Determining why the knower needs it will decide what is going to happen. The second part of why is resources. And when I talk about resources, that how will you know? It is very easy to say that I need this knowledge, I want to know. How will you know? Is the knowledge available? How do you know it's even knowledge? A household in Bihar during Diwali paints his house and the women draw a border with fine mythological drawings. It's just a drawing, you know. And then that is taken by someone, drawn on paper, put in a museum, some critics make comments, and it becomes Madhubani miniatures. The question is that the sources, what sources make the why of knowledge? What are the sources that make it important? Take, for example, pharma companies. Today we are told that pharma companies have lowered the threshold so that more people are found diabetic in blood tests. So that diabetes medicine sells. I don't know whether it's true or false. It's a theory. So are our sources correct? And this leads us to the value of knowledge. Is the value of knowledge based upon what critics say? Is the value of knowledge based upon its monetization and commercial value? Is the value of knowledge because it saves lives? IBO would like us to consider especially the ethical aspects of this. And this is where another very important thing comes up, is that what is it intended for? What is the intention? Somebody says, what the F? Now it's used as an expletive. It is not used in the meaning that the word FUCK has. Does that change why the knower used it? Should we condone his bad language by saying, well, he didn't mean to actually say anything bad? The last point here is how. And in how, the first is language. Now, obviously, very easy. You can argue that if I don't know French, how on earth am I going to know French? Not as simple as that. The language you know also changes over time, over region, over community. And unless you're familiar with that language, it can become extremely difficult and very different for two people. The sources are also extremely important. How do you know what you know? TOK is, I'm talking about now two central questions. How do you know that you know? And how do you know that what you know is right? Much of the time you have to depend upon the source. The newspaper said it. And every day you will hear fake news. So is it important for the knower to also have a litmus test, which will determine whether his sources are right? In some cases, simple. You have a study which says that the use of tobacco has only limited concerns of health. You do a little bit of research and you discover that the study was sponsored by a tobacco company. Now that's simple enough. But the problem is that there is also a question of places where the sources are not linked to something commercial. How are you going to know there that what you know is right or not? And how are you going to make, especially, the ethical judgments here? Now, ladies and gentlemen, the fact of the matter is that all of this is an extremely complex thing, because the knower and his mind is not one. And as you have noticed, we haven't even gone to knowledge. Once we study first the nature of knowledge, and then we try to link it to the knower, we will realize how much more complex our job is. I will bring you back to the fact that, number one, in future webinars, I will walk you like this. I am not talking about the technical aspects of it. Sometime I will talk about assessment and so on, but mainly I will just talk about these things so that you have enough to think about and enough to research to going forward into your classrooms. Now, I'm going to leave you with a little video, which is a precursor to my future webinars on knowledge, the nature of knowledge, and how condescending and presumptuous the human race is regarding knowledge. I hope you enjoy this.
That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering. Thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization. Every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there on a mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors. so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Yes. Settle. Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale Buddha, the only home we've ever known.
Well, thank you so much, sir. As usual, that was absolutely wonderful. Now, we still have 15 minutes left for the webinar to end, and this is the question answer round. So, friends, you can put your queries or question based on our future program or based on whatever discussion we did today in the chat box. Please do not use the audio, do not unmute your audio. You can use the chat box for writing your queries to us or writing your question to us. And Dr. Chatterji will be more than happy to answer them as long as the time permits. Yes, we will be sharing the recording with all of you once all the series of webinars are over. Maybe by the end of tomorrow, we will be sharing this along with the list of future webinars and a Google feedback form, a Google form for the feedback of the webinars which you have attended. Please fill up the feedback form. That will really help us to make these webinars more effective and more useful. And the list of the future webinar will also be shared. If you have any other question which is relevant in context to the topic, in context to TOK, well, so we have a question. Are we planning to share any resources for the new TOK syllabus?
If I gave you resources, I would be more like a library. Now, that's not my intention. I want you to think. I would like to manipulate your thinking by leading you in the way you need to be led. I will be giving you certain things, and whatever I say here or do, you can always use freely. That's not a problem. I would request you to read. I would request you to watch movies, videos. Those are very important. And if you do that, and if you're patient, you will grow to be what is required of a great teacher.
Okay, we have a lot of messages in the chat box coming for everyone, coming to me privately with a lot of thank you messages. I think we are absolutely grateful to all of you for attending the webinar. And if we keep on collaborating like this, it will be really useful for all of us. We will keep on learning from each other. We have one question. I think it's a very common question, and I think all of us have this question, that how can we make the TOK session more interesting for the students? Even I have this question as a TOK teacher. I keep on hearing that it's not so interesting and all.
There are three ways. One, you have to design your lesson. You have to have the lesson objective. You have to decide that this is what I'm going to get across. Now, for example, today I had very clearly in my mind that I'm going to deconstruct the knower, which is what I did. Now, if I know what I'm going to do, then I break it down, and these are the ways in which I'm going to deconstruct the knower. I work on that, prepare it. Now, I cannot say that this is the way I would like to run a lesson, because I am not a web teacher. I teach face-to-face. And had this been in a normal seminar with all of you gathered around, I would have distributed you into groups, and I would have elicited from you, manipulated you and elicited from you the responses which I gave you today like a lecture. And then you would have understood. It would have been, kind of implanted in your mind that, okay, these are the various aspects of the knower and why I thought that. So that's how it would work. I like my classes that way, and it works pretty well.
We have question from Ms. Oja and Mr. Mahendra. The question are more or less similar, that will we be doing sessions on integration of TOK in different subjects like physics, BM, history? I think we will.
Yes, we will do that. In the next few webinars, we are going to be basically on, we are doing the core theme, and we have just done the knower in the core theme. Next, we will do knowledge in the core theme. What is knowledge? And the relationship between the knower and knowledge in the core theme. Then we shall move on. And knowledge is a huge chapter. It will take 3 or 4 sessions to complete knowledge, because even the IBO wants you to look at knowledge from various theoretical as well as practical aspects. So we'll have to look at all that. Then we shall move on to the optional themes. I intend to do all the optional themes separately, so that you are able to choose which two you would like to use when you are teaching your own students.
We have one question from Ms. Natasha. Which areas of knowledge do you teach on priority versus letting students explore it on their own?
In my experience, TOK is something which is not something with which the students have grown up. Now, again, let me explain this to you. When I started teaching in an international school, I taught in a school which had PYP, it had homegrown middle years leading to IGCSE, and then the IBDP. And in the IBDP, the numbers suddenly swelled. So grade 11 had a lot of new entrants. These were people who had come from non-international schools. Now, they had not seen anything like this. They had not heard of anything like this. So to expect them to understand the areas of knowledge or anything by themselves, completely by themselves, may be very difficult. It is probably more likely that you can lead them to finding these things. By example, through debate, through all sorts of things. So you can do that.
Okay, I think we got one question from Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Ganesh Tiwari, and we had this question in the previous sessions also about the timing of the sessions, timing and the date of the sessions. Well, I think I can answer this question. We haven't decided the timing and the dates yet, but we are planning to keep them on weekends so that all of us can attend, because I know that virtual school is happening for all of us, and summer vacation will also vary. It's not same in all the schools. So we will actually try to keep it during the weekends so that we all can attend. And the timing and the dates will be disclosed very soon. So please keep an eye in your inbox. You will be receiving an email from me by the end of tomorrow, which will have the list of the future webinars which we have planned for and a feedback form. And it is my humble request before all of you to fill up that feedback form. That will actually help us to make our sessions more interesting, more effective. Well, we have another similar kind of question, that how do we integrate TOK in a language class, and especially language acquisition class? I think that's what she's trying to ask, Ms. Aarti Dhingra.
You know, I answered this question. I've answered it many times. I'll answer it again. Integration of TOK is not very different from what you would do when you have the big question in any lesson plan. For a moment, forget that you're teaching IBDP. Think you're teaching 11th and 12th CBSE, and you're teaching French. I don't know which subject you teach, but assume you are teaching French. Then again, you can have a bigger question. For example, can truth be lost in translation? Now, you have done a little bit on translation. You've made kids translate this, that, and the other, and you come to this kind of thing. Now, that can be a big question in a CBSE class. It could be a TOK question when you come to an IBDP class. So I don't think that it's hugely different. But yes, you can focus it more because TOK is structured, so you know where those big questions should come from.
Most welcome, Ms. Aarti. I think, okay, we have one message from Ms. Neha. We have message from Ms. Sunita. Ms. Sunita says, thank you so much for the wonderful session, but kindly make arrangements for subject-wise TOK session. And Ms. Neha also says something like a similar kind of message. Mr. Ajit also, yes, we will do subject-specific session. When we have analyzed the responses to our Google Forms for registration, we have seen that many of the teachers have written how to integrate TOK in a DP chemistry class or a DP physics class, computer science class, maybe a language acquisition class. So as Dr. Chatterji said just now, that in future, we are planning of doing more such session, more such customized session once we finish this core theme and the optional themes. So you just keep an eye in your inbox. We will be disclosing the list of the future webinars by tomorrow, and you can start registering for them. Thank you so much, and especially a very big thank you for the reason that it's Monday, it's not weekend, and still we all had school maybe till 3:30 or 4 o'clock, whatever. So after finishing school, we are here. I mean, my friends from India and some other parts of the world, and from many parts of the world, I think it's early morning, if I'm not mistaken. So they will be joining to school maybe within a couple of hours or something. So thank you so much for attending the webinar. Both me and Dr. Chatterji is absolutely grateful to all of you. And we are eagerly looking forward to your presence in the future webinars, which we are going to have. You can expect email from me, which will actually have the, okay, I think, yes, we have one question from Desmond, sir. We can take this, we have 3 minutes left. In mathematics class, only a few students are interested in answering TOK questions. The rest just keep silent or show no interest. How to engage them in the discussion? I think I also have this question. I mean, the response is so partial. How do we make it more interesting?
You have to raise their level of curiosity. For example, let me give you an example out of mathematics. You ask them, do you know what a number system is? So they'll come up with, 1 to 9 and a 0. So, okay. Can you have a number system with just 2 numbers? So that will throw them for a while, but then after a while they'll come up with 0 and 1 binary. It's okay. Can you think of a number system with 3? Now they're completely lost. And at this moment, you can take the example of the Fibonacci sequence. That it always leads to a third number. And then you want to ask them that is mathematics therefore a subject of theoretical possibilities? Or is it applications? You are into the realms of TOK. How do you know?
I think that's a wonderful answer. That is just simply an amazing answer. I personally just love it. And I'm very sure you all love it too. Okay, we have a lot of thank you messages. Miss Rathod. Okay, thank you, sir, for a wonderful session. Looking forward for TOK in chemistry class. Yes, even I'm also basically a DP chemistry and TOK teacher. I'm also looking forward to the session. I don't know when Dr. Chatterji will be doing a TOK for chemistry. I am personally looking forward to it with so much of eagerness. Yes, I think we have one more message. Okay, Miss Purbi. Yes, most welcome, Miss Purbi. We have one message from Mr. Debashis. Thanks, sir, for the session. As a librarian, I can say that it's of great importance to do understand yoga. Well, that's, I think, it's really a very good saying. It's really important. I mean, librarian also plays a very big role in running this entire DP program. Okay, we have one more message from Ms. Pratibha. Looking forward for TOK in biology class. We are really happy to see that so many people are interested in all this, and we have specific requests for subject-specific requests, that TOK for chemistry, TOK for history, TOK for language class.
I just want to interrupt to say this, that I will do that. But please understand that unless you are very clear about certain basic concepts of TOK, what is knowledge, what is the knower, what is the relationship between knowledge and the knower, what are the questions that TOK asks, unless you are clear with that, you cannot suddenly produce the proverbial bunny out of the hat and say that, this is how I'll do it in chemistry. It doesn't work like that. So that is why we'll have to first go through the whole process. We'll have to do the other parts and then come to that. So yeah, it will come.
Okay, I think it's time. Thank you so much for the webinar. Most welcome, Ms. Purbi. Thank you so much. A very big thanks to all of you for being in this webinar with us. Please keep an eye in your inbox. You will be receiving an email from me with the link for the feedback form. I'm eagerly looking forward to your responses and your suggestions as well to make our session more effective and more useful for all of you. And we will also publish the list of the future webinars that we are going to arrange so that you can plan your schedule, and we are absolutely expecting you in those webinars. Have a nice day ahead. Thank you so much for this.